You're going to see I'll probably take some punches. My coach won't be too happy about that, but I'm definitely going to be giving some punches too. So it'll be fireworks from the second the first bell goes to the end of the fight when someone's on the canvas, and it won't be me.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Joining me now is a true bad mofo. This guy is taking on the Polish Hammer at Rough and Rowdy 22. He is the 4-time King of the Rink champion and 2-0 inside Rough and Rowdy. His name is Daniel Amesbury. I'm pleased to be joined by him. Dan, thanks for joining me today, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, you're obviously down in the United States right now, but you're from up in sort of my neck of the woods up in British Columbia. You're from Maple Ridge. I want to dive deep into this. I don't know a ton about you. I've followed through some of the journey in terms of King of the Rink and stuff like that. That's sort of where I found out about your name. And then I saw that you had trained with Dan Kayach up here in British Columbia. So I want to go way back. Like, take me back to the very beginning, growing up and whatnot. Like, talk about sports. What was your childhood like?
So I grew up in Maple Ridge. Kind of, I guess, a little bit of a blue collar high school I went to. But yeah, I played baseball and hockey growing up. I was always kind of into the tougher side of hockey. Baseball kind of, as much as I liked it as a sport, it kind of bored me a little bit just because there was, no contact and stuff like that. But yeah, I kind of just grew up pretty normal life. My dad was a jail guard, so he was kind of like just a tougher guy in general. I kind of had he raised me to be tough and stuff like that. And then, as I got into high school, in Maple Ridge, I feel like it was kind of a tough culture out in Maple Ridge. And there's, lots of fights in high school and stuff. And so I kind of grew up around it, and then as I started getting into junior hockey, that's kind of when I really started falling into it, where I kind of I didn't know if I was going to make the team. I was kind of on the bubble.
Yeah.
I ended up fighting an older guy. I think I was 17. He was 21 or something like that. And I did really well. I might have been 16 actually. And I did really well. And then I ended up making the team, and it kind of became a part of my game. And then from that point forward, it was kind of just mostly fighting in hockey. I didn't really box or do any training and stuff like that at all. I kind of just was fighting, and I kind of fell into naturally tough. I didn't mind doing it. And then when I got a little bit older, I started, dropping into boxing gyms here and there, never ever really too consistent with it. And then as I got, into pro and stuff, I started boxing a little bit and stuff like that.
So growing up, you said, obviously Maple Ridge, not the friendliest of communities. Your high school, there were scraps and whatnot. Is there a childhood memory that sticks out to you in terms of like high school fights that you got into?
Yeah, I kind of remember one specific time where I was kind of like, I kind of wanted to hang out with this one group of people. I wasn't quite the cool guy, and I'd hang out with these kids. And I remember one time in specific that there was this really big kid, and, he's really bigger, older. He was maybe grade 11. I was probably grade 9, 11 or 12. Maybe he's a big guy. And they would kind of pick on me a little bit. And finally, I remember this one day, I said, forget it. And we're going to go outside and we're going to handle business. He kind of freaked out. He didn't even really want to do it. And it wasn't even, the funny part about the memory was we didn't end up fighting, but it was the first time I really said, forget it. We're going outside. We're going to do this right now. And I really stood up for myself. And I felt like ever since then, I kind of bought into this, I'll stand up for myself. I'll stand up for my friends. And then it actually brings me back to another memory. Thinking about that was where something else happened, where there was actually an altercation. I was actually maybe a little bit older. I was probably just finishing high school. And I was at this baseball game, and there was supposed to be I was supposed to fight someone there, and neither of us really wanted to fight. We're actually friends now, but like neither of us even really wanted to fight. You could tell, but we were kind of, the groups are kind of pressuring you. Everybody's like, "Oh, fight him, hit him, fight him, hit him," and both of us were like, I was like, "Well, you hit me. I'm not going to hit you first. You hit me." And he said the same thing, and nothing ever ended up happening. And then So I go back I go back and I sit over and I think I must have been 19 at the time, but we're sitting there and I grab a drink and I'm kind of standing there and one of these older guys these were the older guys, the older, tougher group of kids that we had grown up with. And he was like one of my best friend's older brothers kind of group. And they were like the really tough guys. And when we were kids and stuff, and one of them came out and he kind of suckered me from the side and he hit me hard. And I remember I kind of just, as it happened, I put my drink down. He hit me. And as he hit me, I put my drink down and I turned around and I gave him 3 good shots, like as hard as I could. And I just got him really good. And I remember ever since then, it was kind of everybody kind of got respect. And they're like, oh man, like this guy can handle his thing and handle his business. And it was really a transition for me in my growth and just like my confidence, because I was like, these are guys that I was always scared of and guys that I was like, oh, I would never, mess with these guys. These guys are the toughest guys. And then when I finally got into a situation where I felt like I had to and I did it, I was like, oh, wow, maybe I got something more than I think. And my confidence grew. And it kind of just builds from there, obviously, I got a lot of experience fighting in hockey, so I got to grow a lot through those altercations I got in and stuff. But I feel like I had a few really big pivotal moments like that. And the funny thing is, he's actually one of my best friends now, and we talk about that story all the time. And shout out to Jamie Sayers. That was pretty big.
always the way with guys, though, right? You get into a fist fight, you become buddies. You said you played baseball and hockey growing up. Was there a point where you remember, okay, baseball's not going to be it, I'm moving full time into hockey?
Yeah, I think when I was going into junior hockey was probably when it happened. I remember I took 1 year off of baseball and then I went back into it. And then as I was going into junior hockey, it was kind of time to just pick one or the other. And I feel like I was a better baseball player, but I was just, hockey was more my game. It was tougher. I got to fight and I was hitting and stuff. So I stuck with hockey, and it was pretty much hockey from then on. I probably would have been about 17, probably my first year going into junior when I gave up baseball.
Do you remember your first hockey scrap?
Yeah, I actually do. And I had braces. I think I was 15 years old. So I got in a fight. We were playing Chilliwack. Chilliwack was always one of the tough teams. And
always big dudes. I grew up playing hockey too. I played for Killarney Minor Hockey. So before they amalgamated with like East Van and Grandview and all those teams, and whenever we'd play Chilliwack, Abbotsford, Mission, it was always like, what the hell are these guys feeding their kids, man? The guys were always huge. Yeah.
It's like something in the corn, we always said.
Yeah.
Something in the corn. But so we'd always have, Ridge Meadows is always tough hockey teams. And so Ridge Meadows and Chilliwack would always have these chippy games and stuff. There'd be lots of hits. And I remember, like, we had cages on, obviously we were 15. And I remember getting into it with a kid, and then we ended up just being like, hey, let's fight. And I peeled his helmet off, he peeled mine. It was my first time. I think I may have been in fights before where one helmet came off or we were fighting with our gloves on, whatever, like kids. But this was my first fight where both of our helmets came off and we were going toe to toe. And I actually had braces at the time. I didn't have a mouth guard on, and we went toe to toe, and it was a good fight. We were both bleeding, and I remember coming off, and my dad was actually waiting for me in the dressing room. And I was surprised that he wasn't mad. He was almost like, yeah, that a boy. Like, he wasn't so like stoked on it, but he was like, are you all right? How can I help you? He wasn't like tearing a strip off me like I would have expected. And so I ended up basically having a good tilt. My nose got broken, and my dad actually straightened it in the hallway in front of the other parent. And they were freaking out. Like 5 minutes. And they were freaking out. And it was quite the experience for my first fight.
That's hilarious. Now, obviously, you must have played rep hockey, obviously, moving through into junior and stuff like that. You weren't like the Happy Gilmore guy who couldn't skate but could scrap, right?
Yes, exactly. I'm just going to step into the room.
Yeah, no worries. I had a buddy growing up who, a good friend of mine played for Ridge Meadows actually growing up. I'm a little bit older than you, but I'm an 81. You're a 90, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, so I know Ridge Meadows always had good players. So you played junior hockey for Ridge Meadows moving forward, and then how did it progress? Like, obviously fighting was in the nature for you, and then obviously you moved into this King of the Rink thing, which was fighting on synthetic ice. How did that progression seem sort of normal to me in terms of the fact that you were a scrapper, you were a fighter already, moving into this progression? But just talk about the process and tell me how that even came about.
So I pretty much I had retired from hockey in 2014. So I had been out of the game for some time. The first King of the Rink was a little over a year ago now, and I see, me and my friends used to joke about, oh, if there was a hockey fighting tournament, how great would that be? If there was some sort of sport where it was just hockey fighting, we always joked about how that would have been my sport. And so AJ Galante posted something about this ice war thing, and he was, putting on this new hockey fighting tournament, and there was going to be more posted about it soon. But they were basically, it was the first announcement they made, and one of my best friends sent it to me, and he's like, "Dude, you got to do this. Like, check this out." And so right away, I got in. I messaged AJ, and I started sending him videos and all the information I could possibly send him to get me into this, and he ended up liking me and bringing me into the tournament.
And what was that? What was that like? Because obviously the tournament, as I said, on synthetic ice. Like, what's training for that like in terms of you're not training in a boxing ring really because you're going to be on skates. You're fighting like you did on the ice previously, but it's not just hockey fighting. Like, there's got to be some sort of training that goes on behind the scenes for this. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is actually kind of when I had met Dayon too, and I started training with him a little bit. I actually started implementing a little more boxing. That was like, when I first started really working on boxing. I was doing most of my boxing with Caleb Starnes.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is obviously he's a friend of Dayon's and stuff like that in the MMA world. So I started training with Caleb, and he was really working on basically mostly just honestly putting power onto my punches, because for him, he knew I wasn't going into a boxing fight. So he's like, okay, I'm not going to teach this guy really necessarily how to box, but if I can turn his hands into an anvil, I can really give him a hard shot. He can utilize it the way he knows how through hockey fighting and whatnot like that. So I started training with Caleb, and he really just worked on my form and my core rotation and my punching power. And then he put me through workouts and stuff like that. And then we would go to Dayon's gym every once in a while and train with Dayon. And I got to move around with Dayon a couple times and stuff like that, and Caleb and whatnot. And it kind of was the first step towards boxing for me. That was when I really started, putting boxing gloves on regularly.
How did
And that would have been, about
how
two
did
years
training
ago.
for this like? Did you step on the ice at the local rink and like spar with guys? Talk about that.
Yeah. So I did. A normal day for me would be, I'd wake up at 6. I'd be in the gym for 7. I do strength and conditioning usually in the mornings, and then after that I would go down. Caleb was in West Van, so I was doing strength and conditioning. I was living in Langley, and then I would drive all the way to West Van, pick up Caleb. We'd go to the park or to Dayon's gym, and we'd work on some stuff, some boxing stuff, and then maybe go for a swim in the river, some cold plunge stuff, and then at night, not every day, but just as I kind of fill my body out, and 3 times a week at least, I was going to the rink and I was just doing bag skates. So I was just kind of doing all my cardio was basically on ice at the time, so I did that, and then we kind of just we were kind of making the blueprints as we went. I did lots of grappling, some grappling stuff with Caleb. We got to kind of get creative because we were training for something that nobody, I would say not many people have trained specifically for something like that before. So we kind of made our own little blueprint, and we were learning together as we went and coming up with new moves and stuff like that. So it was a lot of fun, and it was a good taste into like the MMA side of like creativity, because I feel like working with the MMA guys to help in hockey fighting was pretty helpful, because I feel like they're very creative minded, and they got a lot more to worry about than just the hands, and they got to grapple and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
we were able to implement some of that creativity into our training, and it was a lot of fun.
Did you know Caleb prior to you like reaching out to him? Like, how did that all come about? Because I know, obviously, personally, I've seen Caleb fight for a number of years. Obviously, back to his tough days, he had a bad rap for his UFC fights, but the guy is obviously one of the most talented local, especially boxers. Man, his boxing is
Oh,
so crisp. I've seen him. I
yeah.
watched a fight where he fought up in Penticton at 5 Star Fight League, And I actually did the post-fight interview at that fight, and he knocked a guy out with like a straight jab. His boxing is so
Oh,
clean.
yeah, and like so, I did know Caleb from before. We had some mutual friends, and that's kind of how I met him. I had ran into him at my friend's boxing gym in Mission a few times, and I'd seen him fight. And then when I started training with him, that was the thing. Like just like you're saying, I've been hit by his jab where I don't think he knows what's behind it sometimes because he's just got such good form and he's got that core rotation. He's just so strong all the way through his whole body. Sometimes he'd catch you and he wasn't trying to kill you, but he'd catch you with that stiff jab. And
Yeah.
I got buzzed by his jab before where I was like, whoa, like what's going on here? Like, it's not like he wanted to buzz me; it just happened. And
Yeah.
and uh, and I don't even think he knows like what's on some of those shots. So he was an amazing guy to train with, and he's a super good dude too. Like anybody that has a chance to train with that guy should definitely take it.
Yeah, my buddy Micah Brakefield used to train with him. They sort of lived together. They did the whole training MMA wise and stuff like that. So I mean, he's helped out the local community huge. Before we
Yeah.
move to Rough and Rowdy, I saw on your hockey DB or hockey community, whatever you want to call it, online, that you said just previously there that you retired from the sport of hockey in 2014. You made a return this past season and played hockey again. How talk about the reason for that?
Yeah, so like I said, I didn't think I'd be playing again. And, the Ice Wars thing happened. I won Ice Wars and I became pretty good friends with AJ Galante along the way. He was the one who put it all on. And, the opportunity came, I had big goals at this time. I had set like a really high goal for myself. I wanted to get into boxing. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know which direction I was going to go, but I knew I wanted to eventually try and box and try and get into the boxing world. And when I met AJ, I was like, oh, what better opportunity? He's a promoter, he's got a gym and stuff like that. So as me and him connected more, he came up with, he's like, man, we need to get you into Danbury. We want to promote this thing more. If you're here, that'd be great. We could promote Ice Wars and you could train at my gym and stuff like that. So he actually hooked me up. He doesn't own the team here anymore in Danbury, but he obviously knows everybody. He used to own the pro team here back in the Trashers days. And yeah, so he hooked me up with the team. And, at first it was a tough conversation. I had a good job. I'm in a union. Am I really going to leave and uproot everything and
Yeah.
start fresh at 32 years old? That's a pretty big jump. I got kids, I got a family and stuff. So it was a tough conversation at first, but as the conversation got a little more serious with the team and I started crunching the numbers and really thinking about the opportunity it honestly ended up being, okay, we make a little sacrifice. Maybe we got to shave some of our bills down and we can make this move and chase my dream and try and be passionate about something and really take it as far as I can. And I uprooted my family and we moved out east. It was like a 48-hour drive to get here.
Jesus.
And yeah, so now we live in Danbury full time and I play for the pro team here. And all the
Sort of funny that
opportunities
it's called Danbury. Your name's Daniel Amesbury. Like, it's
that
all
was
meant.
honestly that was a part of honestly I believe in like the universe and I'm like pretty in tune with that stuff and that was actually something I considered. I'm not gonna lie, that was something that I felt like it was the universe speaking to me. I'm like, my name is Daniel Amesbury, the city's called Danbury.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, am I really gonna pass this up?
For sure. We're in a day and age though where, like in the NHL, it's more of a speed skill game. They've taken the goon and the fighting sort of out of it. There's not a ton of fights in the NHL anymore. What was this like coming back into this? And obviously there's going to be scraps. We see on your Instagram, you're still out there scrapping. So this is a big thing in the league that you're in.
Yeah, so I mean the lower leagues, you got guys that are trying to move up. So you're generally going to have a little bit more fighting. Regardless, they're trying to get rid of it in the NHL. It's still a gun on your hip. If you can fight and you can show that you're willing to fight, it brings more value to yourself as a player. So generally, when you get into these lower leagues, they'll call them the jungle or whatever you want to call them. There's going to be more fights because it's like tryouts. All these guys are fighting to try and move up and they want to show that they're willing to go and stuff like that. So the league I'm in, it's the Federal Hockey League. There's definitely probably more fights in this league than any other pro league right now. And I think this past season I led all of pro hockey in the world in penalty minutes. It's
I actually was just looking at that. It was pretty impressive, but I think even more impressive was when you played for Abbotsford Pilots and you had 413 penalty minutes. That's
yeah.
why that's wild, man. All right, let's talk Rough and Rowdy. You're fighting the Polish Hammer, Rough and Rowdy 22. This is your third fight for Rough and Rowdy. It's a barstool thing. How did this all come about? Because you said you wanted to get into boxing. This was your path in. Is the ultimate goal here boxing now, or is hockey still sort of on your timeline?
No, it's definitely boxing. Hockey's kind of just, hockey's great. I have passion for the sport, but boxing is where my head's at right now. I love it. I'm in the gym every day. Absolute obsession. Like I haven't had this feeling for a long time. So boxing is where I'm headed. What I want to do. As far as how Barstool came about, it was I think they reached out to AJ and wanted him to do like just to show up because they had an event that was in Providence, which was close by. And he said, "Man, I got a way better idea. My heavyweight champ is in Danbury. Why don't you find him a fight and we'll both come up and he can fight in the event." And then he asked me if I wanted to do it, and then yeah, of course I want to, and that was kind of how it came about. The first event I had a 12-second knockout, and then ever since then I kind of became one of the fan favorites, and here I am now going into my third fight.
That's awesome. And you said obviously you were working with, Caleb, you were working with Dan, you were working on your boxing even for those, the king of the rink, king of the ice, whatever you want to call it, those fighting on ice. And now you've been able to transition that to fighting in the ring. What was the transition like in terms of professional fighting in the ring compared to on the ice?
So yeah, so like Rough and Rowdy is probably the greatest entry for me because it's set up as kind of like a tough man event. It's shorter rounds. It's more of a brawl because they actually do 1 minute rounds in Rough and Rowdy. So it's 5 1 minute rounds now. So like they're looking for action. They're looking for people to get knocked out. So it's kind of an easier transition for me. But I mean, as far as like the competition and stuff like that, like I'm seeing higher level guys in my camps. I think like I'm trying to keep my standard high.
Yeah.
My gym has lots of high end boxers here. I was actually lucky enough to move around with one of our guys, Ali Feliz. He works with Team USA.
Wow.
He's still an amateur, but I think he's probably going to be going pro at some point. And then I got to move around last week with a pro. I think he's 22-1. Cheney is his last name. If I'm spacing out on his first name, Cassius Cheney. So he's I think a top 20 heavyweight pro here too. So I've been moving around with some high level guys, and I got good coaches, great people around me, all the resources I need, and I'm just trying to keep my standard as high as possible. And then Barstool is just such a great platform. And it's such a fun event to be a part of. So I'm kind of just, sticking with that road for the time being. And but eventually definitely want to get into getting some pro boxing fights.
You said that first Rough and Rowdy performance ended super quickly. You became a fan favorite, Rough and Rowdy 22. As I said, you're taking on this guy, the Polish Hammer. How do you see this boxing match playing out?
I don't know. I mean, it's a little bit longer now. They extended the fights from 3 minutes to 5 minutes, but I don't think it's definitely not going the distance. Like I'm not there to fight for points. So, he's a longer guy. So we'll just see how it plays out. I'm gonna try and use my skill and kind of walk him around a little bit and let him kind of come to me, but. At the end of the day, I'm super confident. I've been sparring with big guys, long guys. I've been getting lots of work, and I'm definitely predicting a knockout. Like I don't think there's no way that this is going to go the distance. So.
Have you had any funny interactions with Dave Portnoy?
Yeah, I ran into him after the last fight. So I had a second round knockout in the last fight. But in the first round, I took a pretty good shot. I took a couple big shots, that's the one thing I'm working on is trying to move my head a little bit more. I tend to just kind of just want to put my chin down and swing, just like the natural hockey
Yeah.
hockey fight style. So I'm trying to get away from doing that. But I took a couple big shots, and I ended up running into Portnoy in the hallway after. And he said, "Oh, you have an iron chin," and I was like, I don't know. You probably know. Like sometimes you don't really remember what had happened. When you're in there. And I was like, "Well, yeah, I guess so." Like I had really no idea what he was talking about until I went back and watched the video.
That's hilarious. All right, so
Yeah.
you said Rough and Rowdy's what's on the radar right now. Obviously, you have this upcoming fight. Rough and Rowdy is sort of a spectacle. It's not obviously shorter rounds, shorter fights. It's not the spectacle that like Ellis Mania is, but it's still a spectacle with Barstool and stuff like that. What's the next progression for you?
So there's a few different options. I just actually went to that BKFC. I don't know if you've seen that, but I went to
Yeah.
a bare knuckle fighting championship tryout in Miami. That's definitely something I want to do at some point. I think I want to get some pro boxing under my belt first, but that's kind of on my radar. That's a bucket list thing I want to do before I'm done, no matter what, no matter how I get there. But yeah, I think Barstool Sports use the platform, kind of just stick with them as long as I can ride that out. And in the meantime, like I'm getting really good work training and stuff like that. So I think just elevating myself as much as I can, building my platform, and then eventually make the shift over to pro boxing. And then, I'd like to do some bare knuckle. I've talked to, the thing is like the way Barstool's set up, it's actually set up as amateur, but I don't even know how they do it, but yeah, it's set up as an amateur fight, but they still pay. So I don't know. I can't go bare knuckle or pro boxing right now and go back to Barstool.
Yeah.
So, but when I talked to bare knuckle, because they were talking to me about getting me a fight and stuff, and I said, listen, Barstool is great. I want to stick with Barstool for a little while. If there's any way we can figure something out or whatever where I can fight amateur. So I guess they have a contender series or something like that coming up, and they're going to have some amateur bare knuckle fights, but it's actually going to be with 4-ounce MMA gloves. So
Okay.
so that's something that I'm in talks with them about. I might possibly be doing that in between my Barstool fights here for the next year, and build my platform on both ends, and then eventually make the transition over to pro.
You want that bare knuckle fight under your belt before you're all said and done. MMA ever come up? I know you said you dabbled in grappling a little bit.
Yeah, like I think it's fun. I think it's cool. I just think at this point, man, it's just like so much more to learn and so much more to worry about. Like boxing is such a deeper game than I expected,
Yeah.
and I'm just really starting to get into that and scratch the surface. So I think I'm just gonna focus on boxing. I'm actually gonna start jiu-jitsu after this fight. I'm starting to do a little bit of rolling. I've never done it before. I've always wanted to. But I'm going to start doing that just kind of like something I've always wanted to do. So, I mean, it's definitely not out of the question. It might be something that happens at some point. But
Nice.
it hasn't really been something that crossed my mind as of yet. But
That's fun. I teach and train up here in Vancouver Jiu-Jitsu. So
awesome.
if you ever come back up here, make your way through the gym and we'll get to roll. Before I let you go here, before we sign off, let's do a little bit of rapid fire. I'm going to ask you just a few questions. First thing that spouts into your head, spit it out. Cool?
Okay.
Favorite cheat meal?
Favorite cheat meal? Whoa, probably chocolate cookies.
Biggest pet peeve?
Dishonesty.
What's that?
Like someone that's lying. People that lie right to my face. Can't stand it.
Fair enough.
Really
Best hockey movie?
Slap shot.
Definitely. I completely agree. All right, let's finish with this one then. If you could choose anyone to play Daniel Amesbury in a movie, obviously there's been some good ones out there. We've seen Goon, we've seen Slapshot, we've seen, even Happy Gilmore, the hockey player at the beginning. So which actor would play you in a hockey movie?
Probably Adam Sandler. No,
Do you dabble in golf at all?
Yeah, but I'm not very good. I'm pretty much just Happy Gilmore. I'll crush the ball. That's about it. I hit the fairway every once in a while.
All right, buddy.
I'm a long drive guy.
That's hilarious. Well, before I let you go here then, Rough and Rowdy 22, you're taking on the Polish Hammer. You said you're going to get in and out of there hoping for a knockout. For fans that are watching this that don't really know who you are, what can they expect out of you when you head into the ring at Rough and Rowdy 22?
So I kind of always fight the same way. Like I'm coming in for the knockout. You know, I want to try and get in and out as quick as I can. But I'm going to be a little bit smarter. But when I fight, I'm generally trying to be the most entertaining guy. It's the same way that I play hockey. I want to. When I do things, I want it to be like what I want to watch. So when I play hockey, when I fight, I fight and I play hockey in a way that man, I would want to watch this. So. You're gonna see I'll probably take some punches. My coach won't be too happy about that, but I'm definitely gonna be giving some punches too. So it'll be fireworks from the second the first bell goes to the end of the fight when someone's on the canvas, and it won't be me.
Awesome, man. I appreciate your time today, buddy. If there's anyone you want to shout out, like sponsors or anything like that, the floor is yours.
Yeah, just shout out to Fly Straight, shout out to Nirvana Water, shout out to Champs Gym, everybody that's done everything for me out here in Danbury and all the support. Caleb Starnes, man, if you guys want to train with Caleb Starnes, man. I know he's always open for clients, so he's done a lot for me as well. So.